a speaker at a youth conference that our church took us to who vehemently expressed if you were to engage in premarital adult activities as a woman, you really should not view yourself as anything more than a urinal for men to relieve themselves in.
What's up and welcome to a new video. Today we are diving into the wonderfully bizarre world of purity culture. You know, that special place where your worth is measured by your ability to remain a pure, untouched flower. Purity culture has a lot of interesting ideas. There are different religious takes on it. Some of them can just mean without sin. But today we're going to focus on the element of chastity, sexual immorality. And in this, unfortunately, men and women are not created equal. If you look through the Bible, women can literally be murdered for adultery. Their heads can be shaved and then paraded throughout the town. So the shaming and purity culture, that was a real thing back then. And unfortunately, it's still a very real thing today, which brings me to TikTok. Now I'm actually gonna do something a little bit different. Instead of finding religious people on TikTok and putting their videos up here and critiquing them, I looked for videos of people who have gone through the experience of purity culture and have stories to tell. A lot of us grew up with this sort of indoctrination and still struggle with it as a result today, including this guy.
There are many dangers to masturbation.
This is sound advice. It should not be done, for instance, while driving a car. There's a time and place for it.
God has given us ways out of temptation. Like, we know it's a flat out sin.
In all sincerity, it makes me so sad to hear this is still so pervasive. The first time I masturbated, I cried because I thought I was going to hell because I'm Catholic and I wasn't going to tell that to a priest.
Yeah, he's referring to confession, which I really wouldn't want to talk about that to a priest in a confessional box either. Even the guilt around something as solitary as masturbation can be is so difficult to overcome. It's very hard to overcome. I feel like there's a joke in there somewhere. But that certainly did create a mental block for me growing up like that, where I did feel super guilty about that. I felt like I couldn't do it. I felt like I definitely was going to go to hell, which is part of why after I became an atheist, I felt so good about posting my Adam and Eve videos, because it was my way of destigmatizing, even for myself, this concept of moral corruption around something that's, in my opinion, pretty freaking innocent. And I'll tell you time and time again, I've heard people say that even they struggle in their own marriages to enjoy intimacy because they've made to feel their whole life like it's such a bad, evil, dirty thing. So yeah, I love doing my Adam and Eve videos. I feel really good about, promoting sexual positivity and open-mindedness for those of us who had to go through purity culture and had part of that ruined for us. It does take effort to undo that level of brainwashing. And I am so thankful to Adam and Eve for actually sponsoring this video. So if you want to watch a video of me unboxing this time it was pretty wild actually. They sent me the craziest toy I think they've ever sent me. If you don't know, they're an adult toy company and I do unboxing videos. So if you want to watch me do that, there's a link in the description below. I had a lot of fun with it. If you use my code Jaclyn, Jaclyn, as a code at checkout at adamandeve.com, you can get 50% off any one item and free shipping, which is really an amazing deal. So please click that link, check it out, and undo your own brainwashing if you must. It's actually very healthy for you. But science, who cares about that little thing? Okay, so now that we've had fun with that, let's get into the bigger issues. I spent hours watching videos on TikTok about people's experience with purity culture. I actually cried a few times because of how depressing it all was, and sadly how much I could relate. So I've just gone through and I've picked a few, a total of 5, including the guy that you saw before, to just share their stories. Some are short, some are long. They're all interesting in their own way. Some of them had no views and some of them had millions of views. I definitely feel like I've seen all of them at this point, but these ones in particular stood out to me. Like this next one that was actually pretty viral.
Christians act like every other religion is such a cult and it's so oppressive, as if they didn't make me write a letter to my future spouse when I was 11, pledging my virginity to my future husband. That's some cult shit. Have you ever been on a fucking mission trip with YouthWorks? You ever been on a little retreat where they indoctrinate you at a convention center, in the middle of nowhere? Because I have.
I love that laugh at the end, because I have. I feel bad. No, I've never been on a mission trip, but I did go to Catholic school from kindergarten through my senior year in high school, so every day we actually did have to take a religion class, so that was fun. Yes, I was told all the stereotypical things like chewing gum. You take this fresh, clean piece, a stick of gum, you put it in your mouth, you chew it up. Once you've already chewed it, nobody else is gonna want it. Upon further contemplation on this walk that I'm taking right now, I would like to tell this stick of gum, and I know this is horrible of me, once I chew you, I'm not gonna want you again too. You're only good one time. Sorry. But let's get real. Sex is not chewing gum, and people are not objects to be used and then discarded. Which brings me to this next clip. Now, this girl had a lot of interesting things to say, so I'm gonna reference her again a few times throughout this video. But if you thought that chewing gum was bad, just wait until you hear this.
These are things that were said to me in the name of purity culture in the early to mid 2000s that, now that I'm a mother, make me want to vomit. First on the list has got to be a speaker at a youth conference that our church took us to who vehemently expressed, very emphatically, that if you were to engage in premarital adult activities, that as a woman, you really should not view yourself as anything more than a urinal for men to relieve themselves in. Said to a room full of young adults ranging from middle school to high school age.
Horrible. I don't know how else to react to that, but to say horrible. Now, the problem with this, there are a lot of problems with this. Like, first of all, we are not things that can be used and thrown out, like I've said over and over again. But I did see several videos of people talking about sexual assault, and that because they were raised in purity culture, they believed that because they had gone through that they were no longer clean, no longer valuable, and they were broken. They were ruined for their future spouse. They were a disgrace in the eyes of the Lord. And because of that shame that they felt around this, they are that much more likely to not talk to somebody, to not go to somebody for help. So ashamed that they might even let that type of abuse continue. That is terrifying. Like, we need to have proper sex education in schools. If nothing more than to prevent that, at least give kids a resource to let them know that it's okay to talk to somebody, because I'll tell you what, that's not a message I ever got in religious school. It is really sad the amount of people that get trapped in really dangerous situations because of that. And I would like to take a quick moment to put this up on the screen. This is the National Sexual Assault Hotline. It's confidential 24/7. You can even do an online chat if you want, or you can call a number. And I really hope that if you are somebody that promotes this idea of purity culture and you use this example of chewing gum, you really need to consider this and put in an effort to make sure people feel safe. Thank you for letting me get on my soapbox for a second. I know it got real. I will move on, but I just wanted to take that moment because I feel like it was something that needed a little bit of attention. So here's another clip of this girl talking about what her experience was also growing up in religious education. She starts with college and then moves on to elementary education. So this first clip is her talking about advice she got while she was in college.
It's cold outside because it's winter and you're gonna have your jacket and your scarf on, and when you take your scarf and jacket off, it can look really seductive. So here's our tips and tricks to not have your brothers in Christ stumble. Go to the bathroom and remove your jacket and scarf before going to class, or better yet, keep your jacket and scarf on.
It's wild. Now taking off winter gear is seductive. So you're basically a stripper when you take off your winter coat.
And the second was from a purity class that I had to take through church. I can't remember how old I was, probably middle school. But they gave you 2 pieces of construction paper, a pink piece and a blue piece. I just colored these pieces of paper because I don't have construction paper. And they were like, okay, now everybody takes a glue stick. The blue paper is a boy and the pink is a girl. Now glue them together.
I've done this.
Okay? Glue your pieces of paper together. Really get them on there nice and tight. And that was, you know, having the sex or smooching or whatever. Then they would be like, okay, now peel the pieces of paper apart and see how some of the pink is stuck to the blue. Now this boy will always have a piece of you stuck to him, and you will look like this, incomplete, with pieces missing. That's what happened if you do premarital anything. If you even think about a boy who isn't your future husband. Messed up!
I love her frustration at the end. That's pretty funny because I feel it. I feel it too. And yes, that is something that I did in school. Although I don't think we each had our own pink and blue paper. I distinctly remember the teacher just giving that at the front of the class as a demonstration. Like, she was the one with the paper and the glue and the... Yeah. Yes, Jacqueline? What if both papers are pink? It is messed up, and I'm so glad that people are speaking out about their experiences. I mean, honestly, like, every time I've ever talked about stuff that I experienced, people would tell me, oh, that's gotta be like such an uncommon thing. Your school must have just been a wild one, a bad example. It's not like that all over the place. It's not something that a lot of people experience. Yeah, that just must have been a freak thing that you experienced. But I know it's something that I hear a lot of people talk about. And now, thanks to the internet, it's becoming known how many people go through this. And honestly, I don't think my school was all that bad compared to a lot of the stories I've heard. Sure, I had the basic paper stuck together. I had the chewing gum. I also had the banana peel. Pretty standard compared to some of these stories. But if you don't know about the banana peel, it's the classic, well, once you peel the banana, you can't put the peel back on. It's been forever damaged and corrupted by sin. You are going to hell. Ray Comfort might use bananas as proof of God, but a lot of people use bananas to prove, that you're a whore. Can't put the peel back on. Right, because, bananas have emotions and thoughts and are exactly like people. Your value can and will decrease as a result of your sexual experiences. Also, fun fact, the you can't put the peel back on thing, that has been debunked in our household because I have a toddler who did look at a peeled banana and say, it's broken, and that caused a meltdown. But you want to know what fixed it? Tape. Tape fixed it, and it solved the problem. So you know what? Take that. You can put the peel back on. It was a satisfactory response, so I'm gonna go with it. But yes, I have 2 kids now, and having gone through 2 pregnancies and now raising 2 small children, I feel a type of way when I hear people talk about the whole pro-life, pro-choice thing, and not in the way you think. Everyone thinks, well, now that you've had kids, you must be pro-life. It's like, no, you need to want to be there. Like, I can't imagine having to do all of this and not wanting to do it. That is, or not being able to mentally, physically, financially. I am all about preparation and family planning according to how ready you are, and also knowing the physical changes and how much your body has to go through for pregnancy and birth. And oh my God, the recovery, like, you have to want it. Like I said, I feel a type of way about this next clip. And even if you're a pro-lifer, it should piss you off.
One of my other favorites was a youth group leader telling a room full of middle school and high schoolers that should they experience an ectopic pregnancy, her hope for us would be that we would understand the sanctity of life enough that we would lay down our lives for that child. If you're not aware, an ectopic pregnancy is a pregnancy that always results in loss of life of the pregnancy, and almost always untreated and loss of life for the mother. So essentially she was telling us, you should die for your baby that is going to die anyways, and you should be happy to do it.
So pro-life that you're pro-death. Make it make sense. It doesn't. If you are pregnant with no chance of birthing a healthy, alive baby, there are people out there that still have the nerve to demand you carry that pregnancy to term even if it will kill the mother. I know legally we're not there yet, but there are people out there voting that think this way. If y'all aren't voting, please go vote, because that concept scares me. And even beyond that, they get into the realm of contraception. They don't even want you to have contraception. Don't get pregnant, but also don't use contraception to prevent getting pregnant, because that's just interfering with what the Lord wants. Purity culture teaches kids that sex is like the ultimate bad thing that will ruin their lives. But here's the kicker. Teaching kids to be terrified of sex or any amount of sexuality actually doesn't improve their chances of making healthy decisions. It just makes them terrified. I know this, guys. I went to Catholic school. We had abstinence-only education. I know what everybody was up to, and let me just say this. It didn't work. We were actually taught this exact thing.
Any and all forms of birth control thwart God's plan and intervene in God's perfect creation for what love and adult relations should be. So when you use any form of contraception whatsoever, you are interfering with God's love.
Don't want to interfere with God's love. God forbid, literally. This next part's also pretty important, so I'm going to include it.
Being raised in purity culture and being raised in religious education robbed me of any opportunity to develop healthy feelings around my own sexuality and my own reproductive health.
We were not given sex ed, essentially. Nobody felt like they understood what was going on unless you learned it externally, because we certainly weren't taught it in school. And a lot of people's parents had the same mentality as our teachers did. They didn't want to talk about it. Teaching shame and fear is not going to prevent people from having sex. We need proper education that teaches people respect, consent, and safe practices, not fear-mongering and shame. It's just so sad to me and scary because so many people go through it. According to the National Campaign to Prevent Teen and Unplanned Pregnancy, teens who receive comprehensive sex education are 50% less likely to experience an unplanned pregnancy than those who receive abstinence-only education. I'm not shocked. Now let's talk about the pro-life movement again and how it ties into purity culture. Pro-life advocates push purity culture hard. They say don't have sex until you're married or do anything. They say stay pure. But when that wonderful advice inevitably does not work, where are they when people don't follow these unrealistic expectations and end up pregnant? Nowhere to be found. They're not showing up to help these women. According to the US Census Bureau, around 23% of children under 18 live with a single mother, many of whom face significant financial challenges. The Brookings Institution found that public spending on unintended pregnancies in the US amounts to about $12 billion annually. Imagine if we used that money and spent it on comprehensive sex education and maternal support programs like they do in countries with lower levels of maternal and child poverty. Everyone focuses on abortions. Yes, being pro-choice does involve providing safe and legal abortions for people, but it's also about providing contraception and comprehensive sex education. It's about supporting parents with affordable health care, affordable child care, and social services. The American Public Health Association reports that access to contraception and family planning services can prevent about 2 million unintended pregnancies each year in the US. And that would likely have resulted in 900,000 births and nearly 700,000 abortions. If you're pro-life, that should make you so happy you could just shit out a baby. I'd also like to take this moment to say something controversial, which I know is shocking for my channel. Purity culture for a long time made me uncomfortable around men. Since I was very small, I was taught that my body as a female was something that I needed to cover, be ashamed of, and protect from the wild savages of men out there that were unable to control their thoughts, feelings, or impulses. They can't control themselves, so it's up to women. It's my job to be modest. First of all, how horribly insulting and condescending towards men is that? And then also to put that responsibility not only just on adult women, but young girls. I remember actually getting in trouble all the time because my skirt was too short. Now, granted, I was one of the tallest girls in my class, and I always was. And we had uniforms, right? They were standard size uniforms. And I was this tall, skinny little thing, so the skirts that fit my waist were too short. So my mom and Nona had to constantly take little like scissors and undo the hems of these skirts, which would normally give you about that much more fabric, to like then unfold, iron out, and try to make the skirt longer. And many times, even then, it wasn't. So I would get skirts that were too big, undo the hems. They would have to put like little elastic bands in the inside waist, and then my skirts were always like really puffy, and that made me get made fun of even more than all the things that were going on that I used to get picked on for, because I had weird puffy skirts, because I had to put elastic bands, and it was insane. Like, I would get pulled into the principal's office, get down on my knees, they would put a ruler on the floor and measure from my knee up, and it wasn't allowed to be like a certain distance, like an inch or something above my knee. Okay, well, I have really long legs, so I always was getting in trouble all of the time. It makes me mad. Like, now thinking about it, now that I have a daughter, like, if that ever happened to her, I would, well, it won't. I will not be sending her to Catholic school. Anyway, so when I saw this next clip on TikTok, I absolutely had to include it.
What's the weirdest purity culture lesson you were ever taught?
Misandry. That's what Christian purity culture taught me as a little girl. Christian purity culture unintentionally taught me to hold men in contempt. Because Christian purity culture taught me as a 10, 11-year-old girl that if I didn't cover up my collarbone and shoulders, men were such sex-crazed, impulsive monsters unable to control themselves, that I had to protect them from their own animalistic urges and thoughts by covering up my little girl body. And even as a little girl, I knew that made men bad. No matter how much they tried to tell me it was natural, I was like, if men are like that, then men are bad. And it wasn't until I deconstructed my Christianity and became a feminist that I was like, no, men are fully capable of controlling themselves. So men aren't bad. Purity culture taught me misandry.
Love it. Love her. This hit the nail on the head. I wonder how many women think differently towards men as a result of purity culture. And I wonder how many men have been messed up from it as well. I mean, imagine growing up being constantly taught that you can't control yourself. Society expects you to fail. I mean, if it's ingrained into their subconscious that they can't do better, why try? It's just gross, but I would like to end with this final clip.
And as someone who is deconstructed, and maybe to someone who like was not raised in faith, I think that kind of sounds like silly or like funny. But when you're someone who truly believes that your eternal salvation relies on you following these rules, it is like gut-wrenching to hear those things, especially when you're in middle school or high school and forming all beliefs and knowledge that you have on these subjects.
Yeah, I get it. If you tell somebody, like I have, you know, I was taught when I was a kid that if you peel the banana, you can't put the peel back on, or if you chew a piece of gum, you can't make it back into a clean, pure stick. You know, and people laugh because it sounds funny. And I get that. It sounds funny to me now too, as an adult that has matured and moved away from this way of thinking. But as a child, you are very easily influenced, especially if it's coming from a person of authority like your teacher, or, you know, like a family member, or your church, or your community, and in whatever way. Like, this is what everyone is taught. This is what everyone is doing. This is the standard. This is how I should feel. And if I get it wrong, I'm going to go to hell and suffer and burn for all of eternity. That shit was terrifying. And I believed it. I believed it. And even though I'm an adult now and I've moved away from it, it still affects me. It still affects me. And I'm doing a pretty good job. But there are still moments. As a small child, you can be so easily influenced by these thoughts, by these things that most people think are funny. It's pretty devastating for a lot of people. And I can't even imagine being someone in the LGBTQ community on top of that. Like, oh, listen, I mean, you guys know that I do not think our worth is tied to our sexual purity. You guys know very clearly at this point that that's not how I feel. But I do want to think critically about why these beliefs exist and who stands to benefit from them. I mean, it's absolutely about control and maintaining these weird, outdated power structures. And I want to take that and I want to turn it all around and make it about empowerment and informed choices. Whether you choose to wait or not, or have children or not, it should be your decision and not something dictated by fear, shame, or lack of options. Attempts to control our reproductive freedom are way out of step and anti-democratic. The ability to create our own families on our own timeline is a foundational freedom, and we need to protect it right now. This is not turning into The Handmaid's Tale, damn it. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, share it everywhere. Please leave a comment and let me know what you think. If you are someone who has had to break free of purity culture, how did you do it? What are the steps that you took? Do you have any advice? Please leave that as a comment, because you never know. Maybe I didn't get through to somebody and your comment will. Also, I really enjoy reading them because I relate more than you probably know. Also, if there's any video topics you'd like me to cover in the future, I'll take any suggestions. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss any future rants, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.